All right, I think we got pretty good mass of people coming in here. Attendance is looking good so far. I'm sure more and more people will be joining over the next few minutes and throughout the event. I'll just go ahead and get us kicked off here. So thank you all for joining us today, whether you're still in the onboarding process or you're already live raising capital. We're definitely glad that you're here. I'm Troy, and I'm part of that capital team, and I work very closely with Paula, who's also live with us now, and Rob, our CEO, who I'm sure most of you have already met. We're always looking for new ways to help you all raise capital, starting with resources and open office hours, and now to events like this, where we'll be bringing in new experts to talk through their approaches to investor acquisition. Before we dive in here, just a few notes. Please submit any questions in the Q&A function, and we'll do our best to answer them as they're coming in, but we'll also leave time at the end for questions as well. This webinar will be recorded and just distributed after. We'll also be sharing the deck, more information about our guest. With that, today's session is all about the rise of influencer marketing and how we can, or how you all can use it to reach and bring in investors. We're joined by Filip, the Chief Revenue Officer of Xemoto Media. Xemoto is an influencer platform that specializes in highly regulated markets and investor acquisition. From that, Filip, I will let you take it from here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Nick Capital, for having me here, and nice to meet everybody. I'm going to share my screen here because we got a deck. So, like I said, please feel free to ask any questions in the QA panel. And you guys can see that okay? Everybody can see that? Great. Okay, so like Joe said, my name is Filip. I'm the head of sales and marketing, chief revenue officer at Xemoto Media. Xemoto Media, we are an influencer marketing platform that specializes in highly regulated industries. So financial services, investor communications, healthcare, B2B, anything that doesn't have really an influencer marketing solution for it. This is what we specialize in. And today's topic, we're going to dive into really who is this new retail investor that everyone keeps talking about, and how you can use influencer marketing to target them. So stats around that, etc. So yeah, like I said, please feel free to answer any questions. So let's dive into it. So really, who is this new retail investor? So I love to show this graph VSC on the right, the retail investor share of the global equity market. So really from 2011 to 2019, the share of the retail investors. So assuming everyone knows who the retail investor is, that's the non-institutional investors. So basically me and you, right? Has been around 10 to 12% up and down. But really from 2020 and onwards, for several different reasons, one of those is the pandemic, one of is different, the different apps that have no, like low-cost apps or no-cost apps that you can use to invest have really attracted a ton of people into the market. There's also certain trends, like societal trends about being financial freedom, DIY investing, etc. All this stuff is culminated in the fact that by 2021, 25% of the global equity market was in the hands of the new retail investor. And this trend continues. In 2022, there was a day that saw the largest retail investor traded volume in the history of the modern stock market. So who are these people? As you could guess, a lot of them skew younger. So 50% are millennials with an average age of 35. 41% are women, which is a 30% growth over the older retail investor. Behavior, contrary to popular belief, there's a lot of the stuff we hear about is GameStop and meme stocks, etc. That is a fraction of the retail investor, and it did show the kind of power they have, but really a lot of them are looking to want to hold and for the long term, seeing the stock market as a way to build wealth over time. That's really the goal, is to build wealth over time. for most of these new retail investors. They are actually way more likely to follow stock tips from different sources rather than price movements. So they're less likely to leave the stock market once the price starts to dip. So they have a higher risk tolerance. And then, where are they making these decisions? And this is where we come in. And a lot, 80% of investors are making decisions they learn online. So through search, through social media, through blogs, through Reddit posts, etc. And then a lot of them are also like millennial and Gen Z's investors collaborating online on during networks to make investment decisions. And here are the stats, the common platforms that they're looking at, right? So that's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, but those are the three really top main ones that we also focus on. So other key stats, here's a breakdown of who they are. So there's sort of older, new retail investors as well, and Gen X and baby boomers. Most of them do consider social media a reliable source of information. They look at influencers and so on as people that they can, financial advisors for this new group, for a group of people that will never use financial advisors. They use online forums to source information. Their trust in financial media is much lower, so they're even more likely to look up for influencers for advice. And then they seek advice from, like I said, from financial professionals, about half the rate of pre-2020 investors. So there's a trend there, right? Like there's less trust in social media, more likely to trust people that they see, as experts online. And then influencer marketing as a whole, the reason why our company exists is really the combination of those two things. It's investor relations and influencer marketing, and now we've expanded into financial services, healthcare, and all these other verticals, but really because influencer marketing is on the rise. Spend continues to double almost every year on influencer marketing, and the reason is really built around trust. So people are way more likely to trust what an influencer says about a company, about a brand, about a company, about a stock, than what the organization says about itself. The other part is privacy. So people are turning off their data collection devices, so it's harder and harder to track using traditional means of digital media like digital ads, targeted ads, etc., as less and less information is coming. So companies are going to their audience, and going to find their audience in different ways, and they do that through influencer marketing. That's how they find their audience. And then there's a whole bunch of stats and data showing like influencer marketing is higher ROI than doing digital ads. Again, that comes with the caveat, like yes, but it does take time to get to the right audience when it comes to influencer marketing, and also build that brand engagement with the influencer audience. So I'm going to pause right here if you guys have any questions so far. All good? I don't see anything coming through the chat yet. Okay. So other stats around influencer marketing, the people that follow influencers are going to trend younger as well. Gen Z, millennials, older millennials. The older demographic of millennials trust recommendations from influencers. Consumers trust influencer recommendations compared to 38% who trust produced content from brand type, for brand produced content. And then consumers are more likely to follow influencers who look like everyday people. It's really the equivalent of like word of mouth marketing, right? People getting stock tips through word of mouth. And then what we found, including what's in our data, what we found in our data is that micro influencers, so smaller influencers have like 25 to 50,000 type followers, have a better engagement, better ROI than these larger celebrity type influencers, or just larger influencers in general. They're more trusted. So how does this whole thing work, right? So like, where does the investor journey start? So we're just using our campaign as an example, but this is, in general, how influencer marketing works. It's the same idea of regular marketing where you're starting really with awareness, consideration, and then you're trying to get them to purchase. In your case, would be to invest. So we start with with a cumulative amount of influencers that are posting. Usually they're anywhere from like 250,000 followers to 500,000 followers cumulatively. Not all of those followers are going to see the posts, so they're not going to see the content. Just as that's the way the social media algorithm works. So you're looking at like 10-20% of those are actually going to see the content. And then out of those people, a certain amount are going to be engaging with the content, right? So that's engagement, which means likes, comments, and shares. So people are actually interested in your content, is usually a good predictor of whatever your call to action is, that call to action will get followed through on. So if you take 1% engagement rate, which is like all the comments and shares line up, multiply it by 250,000 followers, you're looking at, on the top end, 2,500 engaged potential customers, right? And that's usually the range that you're trying to get to in terms of engagement. After that, so let me just answer, because I'll have to go through this slide and we'll get into off topic. So question was, across generations, how much does each cohort typically invest, typical average range? There's a whole bunch of data on that, but I would say obviously the older you get, the more disposable income you have. However, it's becoming super common for Gen Zers and older millennials. We're talking about like early 40s, late 30s, to be investing a large chunk of their money into stock market. So collectively, it's a large amount, but that's really who you're looking at targeting, and they're also the ones that are more risk averse. So there is some data around though how much they invest typically, that I can share with you guys later. So yeah, once you get that content out there, then it's really around discovery. It's really what you want to do next, right? So like some companies just want the brand engagement. So you let them go out there and discover more on your company on their own, self-discovery. That's what it's called. You can do a call to action, which if you're looking to invest in something, then you would send them to a landing page, or you would send them to the company's socials if they have a really good social media presence to gain followers, etc. Whatever the goal is. So once you send them to a website, there's certain things you can do. You can get them to fill out a form, and basically you lead capture them, and then start a progressive like email marketing campaign to get them to invest in your company by sending them news, etc. You can hope that they might invest right away, but usually it takes a little bit of time for them to invest. The other opportunity that you can do is you retarget the people that are visiting this landing page, so on social media with this content post, which is super powerful. So basically you have your company or your company's information following around a user all over the internet, so on social media, and then you could even build in a digital ad campaign around it. So it really depends on what your goal is, but that's kind of what like a one campaign would look like. All right, any questions? The key to all of this is data. So just like an influence, just like anything else, you're looking at an influencer, you're looking at how well are they doing. For influencer marketing, usually you're recommending to do multiple campaigns, not just one, so that after each campaign, whatever you learned, if like one influencer wasn't getting really good engagement, or you didn't like the way the content was being produced, or they're not getting enough clicks to your landing page, then you got to swap them out, or you got to adjust your content as well. You can look at all the different comments, you aggregate them, and then depending on the comments, the questions, you adjust your content to be able to answer those questions. In terms of take this with a grain of salt. So these are just engagement. CTR is click-through rates for digital ads. So basically how many people are clicking, and then conversion rates are how many are converting. Conversion rates have a large definition. So it could be anyone to like from signing up for an app to becoming an investor, right? So the numbers are going to be different. The harder the more steps that it takes for that person to become a customer or an investor, et cetera. But if you could see by the numbers, these are our internal numbers, and then there's external numbers too that show this kind of stuff. Based on all the different ads that you can do on the different platforms. Click-through rate is the purple, the light purple rate, and if you look at influencer marketing, you're probably going to get a similar click-through rate as the digital ads on social media. But what's really interesting is the conversion rate. So for like Google Ads, for example, you're getting 4% conversion rate for influencer marketing. Over a series of campaigns, you can get average 12% up to 20% conversion rate. So really what that means is if you target the audience well, versus using digital ads to target your audience, which is much more of a shot in the dark to figure out who are you supposed to be targeting. Even though the clicks might be the same, the conversion rate is higher because you're targeting the right audience. You're targeting an engaged audience, and your influencer is taking your content and transforming it to sound very authentic to their audience, right? So that's those are the internal numbers and how how influencer marketing ranks versus other platforms, and why again it's super popular. Some other insights I just wanted to kind of share with you guys around what numbers that we've come up with. Insights, we mine our data all the time to find insights around how to make influencer marketing better. So one thing that we found that's super common. So first of all, content briefs. So if you ever give content briefs to influencers, you want them to be as short as possible and as to the point as possible. We've had clients that gave in like almost no information to full scripts, and then when you give an influencer a full script, it falls really flat. It becomes a commercial and it's inauthentic. And it almost sounds like you're basically forcing the influencer to talk about your company. The influencers, if you find a good influencer network, they'll be able to take content and understand it. Like if they're focused on financial services or investing or stocks, and really make it their own. So we really, really highly recommend, and we have data really showing what kind of posts do better. And a lot of times it's the ones that are more organic versus scripted. Again, multiple campaigns is always necessary. One campaign is not going to do much. You need to do a lot of A/B testing around audience and content. To find the right audience that's going to invest in your brand. Micro influencers. So the other thing that I don't have in here is thematic. You want to be as thematic as possible. That means like whatever is thematic in the stock market at the time, right? So in investing, so like if you can take an angle on and again, this is all backed up by data, so like anything around ESG, anything environmental, right now chat GDP is huge, so anything around AI. And they actually is, how do you define a micro influencer? So a micro influencer is, there's a question here it's 10,000 followers up to like 100,000 followers ish. But really like everyone has a different definition, but somewhere around there. So like anywhere 10,000 would be the limit, the smallest, but the average is like 25 to 50 and then up to 100,000 followers. So what we really try and focus on, and not just followers, is impressions. So okay, so micro influencers are better than macro influencers. So we talked about that in terms of ROI. So you're going to get better bang for your buck, essentially, to employ many micro influencers versus one macro one. And then organic impressions is key, or organic engagement. So all of these social media platforms allow you this feature, and it's colloquially called boosting. So you essentially take a post, you pay the platform like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or YouTube to show your video more often. But what that happens is usually your video gets shown to audiences that don't want to see your video. So you might get pumped up on your impressions and it looks cool, but really you're not getting the right engagement. There are ways to do it properly. And then it says, aside from followers, are there metrics for micro influencers in terms of posts and regularity? Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, you want to look at their engagement, their general engagement, 100%. So, like, are they getting good engagement? Are they getting good video views? Are they getting good views? Like, so you want to look. You have a YouTube influencer. You want to see, are they, they might be bang on exactly the topic that you're talking about, but they're getting like 15 views per video. It's not going to do anything for you, right? So you're looking at a high amount of views. Same with TikTok, a high amount of views. That means the algorithm is picking their videos up and showing them organically often enough. So those are the two things you want to look at. Things that we look at, we try and stay away from anything personal. So we want like professional type influencers. We want to see if they've done sponsored content before too, because especially around financial services, you got to have a disclaimer, like you can't get in trouble, and it has to be a hashtag ad, hashtag sponsored designation. So you want to pick ones that are professional. So that's a really good question. So again, here are some for impressions, for example, like these are our internal metrics. Like you can double the amount of impressions by boosting it, but you're only getting one conversion versus, keeping it organic and you're getting 7, right? So just because you have less impressions doesn't mean you're not going to get, in the end, what your focus is over the long-term period of many campaigns is conversions, right? That's really your focus at the end for this, if this is your goal. And same with clicks, right? So you can get more clicks if you're boosting the post, because people just sometimes will like literally just click because they see something and they'll click, but then they'll spend 0.3 seconds on the website and leave. And that does not mean that you're going to get the same amount of conversions, right? This is supposed to be this is the other way around, non-boosted and boosted. Yeah. Any more questions?
We just had another one come in, Philip, around the best strategy.
Scroll down. Okay.
No worries.
What is the best strategy in sourcing the right micro influencers? Are there companies that can help or link us to the right influencers knowledgeable of the space we operate in? Yeah, I mean, you could do it yourself for sure. And, so I showed you some of the metrics that you can look at. This is what we do. So I'll show you guys how we do it at the end of the presentation. But if you do work with a company right now, most of the influencer marketing platforms, I would say all of them, focus on retail, right? Retail, e-com, brand, like B2C consumer brands. So working with financial service companies or companies that are looking for investors, we've had that feedback several times that they've been burned by working with these companies because that is not their focus, even though they'll tell you that it is. So if you are going to work with a marketing agency that has influencers, you want to make sure that they have a track record of working with financial services, investor communications, anything like that. They also need to know their disclaimer properly, so not to get in trouble with the SEC or anything like that. Any red flags on an influencer in regards to equity sales? Yeah, so I can avoid them. So that's a really good question. It's hard for me to answer because you could potentially have a great relationships with an influencer as long as they disclose the fact that they own a part of your company, right? So like I don't want to say no, but you have to be very careful and make sure that you have the right counsel to make sure that you don't run afoul of the SEC and have the right disclosures in place. We don't facilitate those kind of relationships just because it's too complex for us. So we do straight but cash payments. We don't do equity payments. But having said that, like I don't want to sound negative because I'm sure there are ways to do this properly and have a good relationship with a good influencer, that as long as they're disclosing it properly. All right. Any more questions? Okay. So who are we? So we are a platform, an influencer network, and then we have a customer service team that provides it. So we basically launch campaigns for companies. Our core business is investor communications. We have worked with some equity crowdfunding, and I'll show you guys some examples of what we've done with equity crowdfunding. but our primary focus is on financial services, on healthcare, anything that's really highly regulated and needs proper disclosures. We have counsel working with us all the time to make sure that, you know, we don't run afoul of anything. I think there's another question. Okay, he says, can you run a sample ROI calculation? I personally tried influencer marketing. She had around 60,000 followers on TikTok, relevant audience. We got around 140 clicks, which is around 0.25%, and got one investor who invested $1,000. So ROI was around 1 time. I have a really hard time seeing how I can get in. So it depends, like, again, it depends on how many campaigns you ran. You know, you got to run multiple campaigns. I'm not sure. So you're saying someone that invested 1,000 and you paid her 1,000 for 60,000 followers? It's a little bit much for TikTok. I would say like that's probably around $200, 250 to 500. So you're looking at 2-to-1 payout for that. That should be probably closer to 2-to-1 payout. I'll show you guys some examples where we run several campaigns and we've got, you know, 10-to-1 payouts. But again, that's an example, right? Because I don't want to promise anything. Like that's after running several campaigns. But like there is no magic bullet. Like you guys know this, right? So but I'll show you some examples where we've gotten 10-to-1 payouts. So yeah, we have 300 pre-qualified influencers. You know, that means we have contracts signed with them. We don't just have random influencers in our network. We've vetted them. We you know, look at the performance all the time. And we have contracts signed with them to make sure that we're covered in case of any SEC slip ups or anything like that. So, and then we have a proprietary platforms where you can look, where a client can log in and look at all the different analytics, you know, including impressions, engagement, et cetera, look at which posts are doing well. And then we have a full customer support team, you know, that gives insights around the campaign, based on comments, based on sentiment monitoring, et cetera. So the way it works is, you know, the classic like iterative process. So, you know, we onboard the client, we launch the campaign. So we select the influencers that we think will work the best. So during the onboarding, we do an interview, you know, talk about different strategies, and then through that we figure out which influencers are going to work the best. You know, we get you guys to submit a brief, a really short brief. The influencers tailor the content, and then you launch the campaign. We QA the actual posts to make sure, you know, the proper disclosure in place. If you have anything specific that you don't want them to say, make sure they didn't say it. And then after a week or two, depending on the campaign, they will submit their analytics at the end. The analytics are then reviewed, you know, by you and the platform, by the client and the platform. And also by our success team. So using those analytics, we make adjustments for the next campaign, and adjustments could include using different influencers or adding, changing out some of the content, to, especially if there's questions around how to invest. Equity crowdfunding, for example, like we've done you know, we've done a little bit of explanation on those types of posts, because equity crowdfunding is a little different. Not everyone's aware of that as a retail investor, of what you know, like what the risk is and like what it actually is. So we do a little bit of, we tend to recommend to do a little bit of education, the influencers, or we use influencers that have done these equity crowdfunding plans before, so you know, their audience would be a bit of familiar with it. And then here are some example campaigns. This, I'm not going to show you guys all of them because there's a lot of videos in here. But here is a crowdfunding platform called Equivesto in Canada. And Inverse is a financial services, basically an investing app, like a social kind of network for gathering different information from. It's basically a Bloomberg in your hand, but you have different people in the social media network telling you how to invest, how to use that information to invest. So what we did before, instead of just like right away running into, hey, invest in this company on this equity crowdfunding platform, we basically let them, the first few campaigns were just signing up for the app. So that's what we were driving here. So this is one of the examples.
So I started investing a few years ago on my
Can
own,
you
meaning I'm a
hear the
DIY
sound?
investor.
Yeah.
I decided that instead of going to pay someone to manage a portfolio for me, I was going to do all of the work. And that can seem kind of overwhelming to learn how to do it yourself. There were two major challenges that I faced when I started that journey. One was finding other people to talk to, and two was trying to find a place where everything was just in one platform. So recently I've been testing out a brand new platform called Inverse, which is specifically made for DIY investors. It's sort of a combination between DIY and DIT, do it together. So over the past few weeks, I've been testing it out, seeing what it's all about. And to sum it up, it's an all-in-one research investment platform, specifically made for DIY investors like myself. Here's a little snapshot of what it looks like on my phone. And by the way, it's totally free, which you know is close to our hearts by providing financial education and information in an accessible, affordable, or free way. So once I signed up for a free account, I did some digging. This is just...
And basically she goes through the whole platform, right? Gets people excited about it. And then after several of those campaigns, then we started launching campaigns of actually investing. Show you guys some other...
Do you want to maximize your...
So here for investor communications, these are the kind of influencers we use. Some of them we have used for equity crowdfunding before. But just to give you an idea of like how the tenor, the vibe of the post. So Versus is a company that is using AI to develop a bunch of technologies, and we actually got them. It's a publicly traded company, so you can check their stock, and their post actually ended up going viral because it was around the same time as ChatGPT was being launched. So these are the kind of trends that you want to hop on, right? If you can. So we have, 3 or 4 of these on TikTok videos of different influencers that got over 50,000 views, which is pretty good for a sponsored post, right? Like these are all sponsored posts. This isn't like organic content.
This is a sleeping giant AI project. Because with the rapid rise of ChatGPT, the AI chatbot partly founded by Elon Musk, the world has just entered the golden age of artificial intelligence, as said by the Microsoft CEO. Because with AI becoming more popular every year, this has me looking at hidden gem projects in the space. Now I found one that's building a first of its kind artificial intelligence operating system for the development and deployment of AI-based solutions for industrial and consumer-based apps. We've seen the frenzy that ChatGPT has created, people flocking to it in droves. Well, I'm now looking at companies that are going to help bring the rest of the world into this golden age of AI. Now, this is not financial advice, and you need to do your own research. But this company that I'm looking at is called Versus Technology.
Yeah, so that's the disclaimer at the end, right? And that has to be present for any sort of investment at all times. So this is a kind of ESG type company.
Is a clean tech stock to watch. Progressive Planet is a Canada-listed stock. The company has a rich supply of material from volcanic fields which can be used in solutions for agriculture, construction, and industrial operations. It's disrupting the $60 billion chemical fertilizer industry and traditional cement. In the meantime, it's already selling consumer products in 10,000 retail stores. And they just had their first profitable quarter with $5 million in revenue and over 30% gross margin. With all these catalysts ahead, it could be a good idea to do some research into this penny stock. This is not financial advice, and I do not hold a financial stake in this company. Check out the link in my bio if you want to learn more.
Yeah, so
it's a clean tech stock to watch.
This one's really interesting, Infinity Stone, because they're basically a mining company. So like, how do you make mining topical, right? So they have a lithium play. So this one, you'll see he starts talking about EV, like electric vehicles.
If you're looking to invest in the electric car industry, you might not want to just go all in on a single car company like Tesla. Instead, you could actually invest in the companies that are mining the minerals required to make battery power. vehicles. One company doing this is called Infinity Stone Ventures. They focus on mining lithium and other battery metals, and they are positioning themselves to be a key supplier to many battery producers. Currently, they're actively drilling in Quebec and Ontario while looking for even more drilling projects to acquire. I was asked by the team from Infinity Stone Ventures to check out their investor deck, which you can find the link for below, and they are the sponsor of this video. However, this is not financial advice, and I always recommend you do your own research before making any investments.
All right. Any questions? Oh, some influencers take your money and they never post. Do you basically guarantee that that's yes? Yes, 100%. So we don't work with those types of influencers that will never, we work with only serious ones that will never get work. So first of all, we don't pay them until they post. So that's one way of saving that, because like we are a big network. We provided them, a lot of these guys, with most of their income. So they're working with us. They will never be working, they're here to make more money. Like a lot of them want to do this full time. A lot of them, because they're micro, do it part time. So yeah, if you're doing it directly, like again, I would work with an influencer that has done this before, like has a sponsored post, has some sort of reputation versus just a random one. Or yeah, that's what I would highly recommend.
This
It's a
is
clean
a
tech stock.
All right, so here are some case studies. These are just like super brief, but if you guys want to throw some numbers at it, Fundify is another equity crowdfunding platform. We worked with them before we met. Net Capital and EFG Structure was one of the projects they had. They ran several campaigns with us, very much ESG focused, and 8 times click rate than like a traditional LinkedIn ad. We're able to track 24 investors, and for the amount they've invested with us, it was almost a 10 times ROI. Now, caveat, they were also doing other things. They were doing some digital ads. They were doing some branding, some trying to get some thought leadership articles posted and stuff. So we weren't the only ones, but that is an example. Hold on, there's a question here. Oh, how much your services cost? So I'll show you at the end. Our minimum engagement is 6 campaigns, and our smallest engagement is $3,000 per campaign. Is there any legal review, and does Net Capital review the post? So Troy, I can jump in for that. So we have contracts and we have guidelines so that were built by our counsel that they have to abide by, which is that disclaimer that you guys heard, right? So essentially you got to be disclaiming the whole time that you're this is not financial advice, etc. And then based on that, we review the posts, making sure that they said exactly those words. And Net Capital wouldn't be involved in the process, right, Troy? Okay. Here are some other examples, for investor type applications. So Ticker is like a rewards program for shareholders. So instead of like dividends, like if you don't own a lot of, which is perfect for retail investors because they usually don't own enough to really get that huge dividend payments, you can get like coupons and gift cards and all this other stuff. So we help drive investors to their retail investors to their website to sign up. Here you can go through some of the stats again. You guys, we'll share the deck with you after so you can go through these. Inverse was another one. We had a 20% conversion rate for them, which is really good. Again, that was after several campaigns. We hit the right target audience. And then Paper is a news app that we also had a relative almost 20% conversion rate as well for signups for this news app. Again, but like with a grain of salt, that's over several campaigns, lots of A/B testing, content adjustment, influencer adjustment to find the right audience. All right. A whole bunch of companies that we work with. Again, investor relations is kind of like our core that we grew up in, and a lot of people in our company have experience in. So these are all the different companies. Usually they're small cap, to micro, and then small cap to like mid cap, sorry, and then two other equity crowdfunding platforms that we've worked with. One is the Canadian one, Equivesto. And then here's our pricing. So we have different packages depending on what your objectives are. Again, I know you guys are in a, in terms of funding, like it's your startup. So we're also a startup. I understand that, spending money on marketing is tough. So we have 3 different levels of packages, and they're basically monthly payments for 2 campaigns a month. One is brand engagement. So depending on the level, so the amount of reach, so 250K versus 500K followers, and then a minimum of 3-month engagement. Again, we do this minimum 3 months because doing one-off campaigns never works. Hasn't worked once for us. We need several campaigns to get the audience and the content right. Okay. I keep hearing several campaigns. Can you break out the number of campaigns versus success rate, duration, and total spend? Secondly, can you break down that by industry? Basically, I'm looking for the sweet spot of the bell curve. So, we see success after we do a minimum engagement of 6. So, I mean, that means that like we need to do 6 for us to make sure that there's going to be success. We start seeing conversions, again, depends on the product, etc. After 2, 3, 4 campaigns usually. And then the spend is right here. So it's $6,000 a month for pure brand engagement. So that's access to the platform, influencers, posts, all that stuff. Some clients want the content, so want to actually purchase the content to use for their own marketing materials. So we can secure that as well. And then customer acquisition includes like actual hardcore like website traffic analytics. So we put our own Google Analytics in there in your landing page if you have one. We do some of the retargeting. So we retarget the people that have been visiting your landing page online on social media. And we boost, basically the posts to those people that have been visiting your page. I know I said boosting doesn't work, but it does when you boost it to the right target audience. So this is kind of the cost. So, $6,000 a month is our minimum spend per month. So over 3 months, 18,000 or so. Of the company examples you showed, what was the average number of campaigns each ran with you? So anywhere from 3 to 6. That was like in some of the 3 ones were in the beginning of our the beginnings of our platform. So we were still willing to run less, but we found that like 6 is really necessary to run the campaigns proper, like to get the right results that we, everybody wants to be successful, and we also don't want you guys to run a couple campaigns with us, see no success, and then waste money. So yeah, so I mean, if you guys want more info, please feel free to contact me. We'll send you guys this deck. Troy and Paula have my contact information as well. I'd be more than happy to dive deeper into these examples. Talk about different campaigns that we run, give advice, anything like that. Please feel free to get connected with me.
Awesome, Philip. Just wait to see if any last questions are going to come in here, but I'll just go ahead and start to wrap up.
Yes, you can get a copy for sure.
Yeah, Steve. I will definitely put you two in touch. Thanks,
Okay,
Steve. Perfect. So let's give it another couple seconds here. See if any last questions come in. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I'll go ahead and make that intro there. Any questions after this point, we'll be sending over, as I was mentioning, we'll be sending over Philip's information, this deck, the recording, everything that we've talked about, sending the follow-up email. So any questions, you can reach out to Paolo and I, or you can also follow up directly with Philip. But we'll be sending all of that out shortly after this as well. So with that, just want to thank you, Philip, for being here with us. Super informative, and I hope that everyone else here also sees the value. And it's just also interesting to learn more about influence marketing and where it's headed. It's pretty cool that you guys are also pioneering this as well within the equity crowdfunding space. So Hoped you all also enjoyed this event that's all about influencer marketing, but we'd also love to hear about what other topics that you'd like for us to cover in the future. So feel free to share any ideas, questions, or feedback with Paolo and I. We're always here to help. Let's see if we have any final questions coming in here that we can sneak in. I think that's basically it. So we'll follow up with everyone who's responded in the Q&A about being interested, meeting with Filip and just learning more. But with that, Filip, thanks again. Thank you all for joining, and I hope to see you all in office hours soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Philip.